everybody, it is Trig again. This is a bit late because Jinx and 5-Star have already posted their videos, but I haven't watched them yet, so this is no commentary affected here, and this is still the old just after the US turn, but it is the Japanese strategy video for 1938. It is the start of July 38, and I've got some thoughts. So, as you may have seen in the last two turns, my invasion of China both had some ups and some definite downs. First turn went very well, captured everything along the coast, held Tongue, repulsed the counterattacks. The issue started this January. We failed the Tongue, lost 2 militia. We took Szechuan, but lost 2 infantry. Took Shinsi, lost an infantry. Took Guanchai, lost an infantry. Overall, it was 6 infantry lost, 6 units lost for about equal Chinese casualties and minimum monetary gain. And we lost 2 more cavalry when they came to counterattack in Szechuan here. So I am very low on units starting off here, as opposed to where I would like to have been. Still have a good force of Tongue and a few scattered forces in the north here, but we're going to have to consolidate pretty hard and build a lot of militia if we want to solidify this front. Good news and bad news. I was planning to attack Yunnan second turn of the war in January. The issue was I was an idiot, and I returned all my fighters to Korea over here, from which, as I can demonstrate, fighting Korea goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It kind of scuppered any options of attacking Yunnan. If I had based in Formosa, it would have been within range, and I could have hit Yunnan and quite possibly taken it in January. But that didn't happen because I wasn't attacking with just 3 tacticals, and so instead we went in that big assault along the front. And it worked, especially because the CCP pulled that at Shinsi. I was expecting to have to fight them a lot harder for that. So I do have that territory now with less casualties. But the CCP is still beating around Sigma. But I think I've got an answer for that, that I'll let you know in a bit. Otherwise, though, I would love to attack Yunnan this turn, but there's not enough units. I did the math, which I can actually pull up for you right here. I'm not sure if you can actually see this on my screen capture or not. But I did some math on Excel. Excel is your best friend. And if you can see this, great. If you can't, sorry, I'm just going to find it. So if I attack this turn in July 38, when it's gone well, I would have been out of units round 2 with still about 8 KMT units left and just my planes. And so that's not an option. Looking at next turn, when I bring about 5 more units in the fight, which I could have had this turn if I hadn't lost so many units with the previous attacks, because I would have had more cavalry and infantry to bring in, I win with 3 units left over after 4 rounds, and it goes much better. So that's the distinction there. And that's why we're not attacking Yunnan this turn, even though I really want to close before the Burma Road opens. So unfortunately, KMT is getting a turn with Burma Road. But if I've got this right, they only have 3 IPP, which means that they're not going to be too much of a threat to me in terms of building more AA. I'm going to have to worry about the British or French enlisting them and technograph guns, but I think Germany has some plans to deal with that, and they can do it anyway, even if the road's open. Question is, how exactly do we go about this? Good news is, all these CCP forces, that's another title, all these CCP forces over here are heading west. They're going into Xinjiang, Tibet. The Axis have brokered the Bratislava protocols with the Soviet Union and the rest of the Comintern, and I have agreed to a pact of non-aggression. Means we got the Soviet-Japanese pact signed, so no more border clashes here. We've got the CCP who have agreed to pull back into Qinghai, Tibet, and Zhejiang, and so they're going to do so and capture those from the KMT. So I will have the CCP building up my board, but I think I can bottle them up pretty effectively from Shinsi with a return force because they've agreed to DZ Qinghai, and it means that I'm free to attack Yunnan without worrying about all these CCP forces coming down. There'll be a few KMT forces that can maybe get into Yunnan next turn, but what I'd like to do is bait them into some attacks or at least kill them outright this turn, because we've got 3 units to hit Szechuan. I don't really want to move this infantry because would have been in position to attack KMT. So we could have 2 against 3. Not great, but all the planes in the world. So I might strafe it. This cavalry up here, is probably just going to come down to Shensi. He might get transported down to Quangtong because there's no point in trying to fake out the KMT at this point. Last turn I was hoping that they would take the big stack of infantry they had in Sikyang and take it to Szechuan, but instead they brought the forces down from Shanghai and moved it down to Yunnan, which is why I can't attack this turn. But so it might be worth bringing this cavalry down to Quangtong just for some more boots on the ground in the area, because there's no dissuading the KMT that I'm not attacking Yunnan next turn. All these 3 calves and 2 infantry are all going to come down to Quangtong. I've got an airborne over here in Tokyo that was going to attack Yunnan because you can actually reach from Tokyo in one turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you look under these guys. So we're going to build another one of those next turn, and we're probably going to drop this guy in Shangtung, land in Hunan, and then just attack next turn. We're gonna, because we want Shangtung. We don't want the KMT building more forces there. It's not happening. It's not good. So in that respect, we might actually miss going to Szechuan because these 2 infantry can't get back in time. This cav can, but we're not worried about 1 cav. So it might be better bring this guy around and hedge our bets on Shangtung not going horribly good. In terms of long-term strategy, Germany looks pretty likely to attack the Allies this next turn. Jinx wants to get France done nice and early before they can build up too much. He's got a big buy coming up with a lot of money saved. The Soviets. Don't know where the Japanese counter is. Oh yeah, 45. So he can get a lot of light armor or medium or max or anything. So yeah, and he's got these raiders coming over here, battle cruiser and a sub, to harass Fartsman. So they're going to go up to full income soon. Not sure what I care about that. Calcutta is getting beefy, and I'd really like to surprise strike it sometime around turn, I don't know, mid 40. So in about 4 turns, that'd be like 7, 8. I don't do the numbers well, because if you can get Calcutta out of the picture, your position in Southeast Asia is way better for Japan, and that's a pretty important victory point. The Soviets, thankfully, and as part of the Bratislava Protocols, have agreed to go hopping down south here into Iran, which is good. I don't think that's how... Okay, they've changed the setup from V3. There used to be infantry up here. That's strange. Okay. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, little V changes from V3 to V4 in terms of setup keep catching me. Like, well, Turkey is completely different, because of all the territories added. But like, Romania got a destroyer as well as a torpedo destroyer. Seems Iran moved some forces around. Yeah, all that sort of thing. I should actually check to make sure down here. Yeah, I think that's an extra infantry in Java, because that was the same transport sub. Yeah, there was a destroyer over here, and B3. Yeah, but little setup changes keep catching me like that. But so the goal is to take out Yunnan, immediately come down here, rebase this IM. Hopefully, I've got French Indochina. Really hoping for that because it would solve a lot of our issues. And then we can build up here, do a quick surprise strike into Calcutta. Might build up in Palau, so I can threaten Sydney. But the extra distances you get out of Palau are really only Hawaii and Sydney. From Siam, you can also hit anywhere else in Australia. I think New Zealand too, if I counted it right. And hit more of the Indian Ocean to help Italy if I need to, because Italy is definitely gunning for Cairo. And if I could, surprise strike Cairo instead of Calcutta for some reason, that's a valid option to look at. And I don't want to go after Hawaii, it's just not worth it as Japan. In terms of other things, yeah, I don't think Palau is worth it because it's further to Calcutta, which means I can't avoid this coastal gun here if Britain preempts my declaration of war by going around. Because if I'm here, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4 into Calcutta, or over here and not have to worry about the coastal gun if Britain declares war on me first. Whereas here, I have to run all my ships past that coastal gun if I'm coming from Palau. And so Britain catches wind of what I'm doing. It's not great. I haven't thought about building up on this side over 912 of Siam, but that's a little bit more risky because you really can't go at all into the Pacific. But depends on how I want to deal with the Americans here. In terms of the Soviets, I'm hoping to get them to pull off this border because I don't like all these forces there. especially with me pulling my militia down to coping China, because this infantry is going to have to rail way down. How much see actually? Good news is I haven't hit any of their Mongolian recruitment rolls. Some of the test games I've played of this, Mongolia just gets absolutely stacked with units because they can hit. It's a 4 recruitment roll. It's a pretty decent chance to hit. They haven't hit anything yet, which is kind of surprising. I've gotten luck in Japan, Siam though, which is nice. Yeah. So the main plan for right now: hit Shangtung, hit Szechuan. Go ahead and target Yunnan next turn. I think I've got the forces to do it. I've got a lot of ground units once I stock up. And if that turn, what'll happen is if the Chinese decide to go attack the coast, I'll have a bunch of infantry built up here from this turn in Kyushu that I'll just swing over and smack them with my fleet. Lots of bombers, probably no air power, because all the air is going into Yunnan to make sure that comes out nice and safe. Because we don't want the KMT retaking Kwangtung, because that's bad. Really bad. But the good news is if I take Yunnan, KMT CCP will have these 3 territories. That leaves. They also have Xinjiang, which I'm allowed to take, but that will leave the KMT with Szechuan, and that might be it. Which means it's going to be pretty fast to get them to surrender, and then once they're surrendered, I can wall off China and turn my attention elsewhere. So hopefully we're looking at only 3 turns before China's gone. In terms of tech, it ain't going too well. We've gotten 1 success out of what should be about 5 rolls so far. And yeah, that's not good. What's worse is the US has only rolled for 2 turns. They've already got 4 successes, and so I've got to catch up. I gambled that letting the US have tech a turn or 2 earlier than what might be the meta would win out and maybe it's the income disparity. But some of those heavy losses in China and my tech program be absolutely horrendous might not be worth it, because I really like to have both large ship construction and improved construction up to stage 2 before July 39. Problem is, I've got 2 turns to do that, and so I've got to hit improved construction twice in a row, which is not particularly likely. The odds of that are about 1 in 4. It's just, the sooner you get improved construction as Japan, the more benefit there is from it. And so we're really hoping for that. Good news is, we're going to lose the American income, but we've got a lot from China. We are pulling in the most money of anyone in the game so far. We're well ahead of the Allies. I just need to go ahead and capitalize on that to turn it into a real advantage in units that we don't quite have yet. Because I want to start getting some medium bombers so I can actually strat bomb things. I was going to get one instead of that airborne last turn, but I realized you can't actually strategically bomb the Burma Road. And so if I built it, it wouldn't have a chance to block Lend-Lease at all. And also the others have been pretty light on Lend-Lease to China so far. Not sure why, but I'm happy for it. But I'd like to get some medium bombers because bombing ports is pretty useful if there's a fleet in port, because it locks them in, as far as I understand. And so it means you can just kind of go around them. Same thing with Philippines. I'd like to be able to maybe even capture these guys if the Americans don't get them out of the way in time. I'd like to get my fleet built up. I've got this carrier and heavy cruiser on the build chart. I'd like to get all the way down. I don't like taking this carrier off before I go to war with the Americans. It's an extra $1 for them. It's not really worth it to have the carrier early, unless I need it for Calcutta, which I don't think I will. But those need to get progressing down the chart. I just need to get more money that I can take off land units and put on boats, because I'd like to have a bunch of submarines to start messing with Allied convoy lines, which unfortunately, as I was doing some work on my Kaiserreich setup that I'm working on the other day, I realized that they dropped the Indian Ocean line from 3 to 1, which stinks for the Japanese. Australia's still got 2, but there's a lot less money to raid here than there used to be, especially with the Manila line getting lost at the Philippines route. But I'd like to get a lot of subs. I'd like to get a lot of destroyers, and I'd like to get some more planes built up. Because what I'd like to have is 3 carriers, because that's all 7 of my planes able to be mounted. And then I can just start pumping out heavy battleships and working on that. Because I don't think carriers are worthwhile to build as any nation unless you already have the planes pre-existing. The Americans are a bit of an exception because they've got a carrier on the build chart and they've got one plane for it. So if they build the extra fighter and finish the carrier, which MP7 hasn't done yet, it's reasonably decent cost and they need it to kind of start island hopping. But as Japan, I don't think it's worth building more carriers than you've got planes for. So if I get more planes, I'll build another carrier. But for now, I want to get 2 more carriers out because that's more points on GW36, and I want more planes, more medium bombers, probably not seaplanes, because there's sea-centric seasons down here, which gives them a ton of range. But the problem is up here, the seasons weren't actually sea-centric in the Pacific, which I think is a major fail on the part of V4. I really like them down here. I wish we could see some sea-centric seasons in the Central Pacific here. Means that seaplane range is just not good out here. And so it's better to just use your main carriers and your light carrier for the sub-hunting. Because you can just park your seaplane back in Formosa and it will cover pretty much all of your important stuff, and then you can hunt any forward things with carriers. But yeah, we'll see how this goes. I was really confident after my first turn in China. The dice quickly put an end to that, but I think that I'm on a decent track going forward. Jinx, if you pardon me saying this, is a little worried about France, but I think he's going to do okay. I know him. I know he's not going to make him tacky. Doesn't think he can win. Spanish Civil War is wound up and done. We've decided to cede Abyssinia for a bit because any build the French do here is build that's not good in Paris, and they can't really get to Egypt fast enough because Italy is planning to do an attack there the second turn they're at war, and so just won't happen. And then Italy can come and bring this force up behind them once France gets going. It'll slightly weaken the attack in Egypt because Italy can't push up from the south as quick, but it's worth it, we think, in the long term, especially because this point doesn't even score until a while later, and if Italy can capture Egypt and build up in it, this is pretty easy to come take out because Britain doesn't have a great base of operations elsewhere in the area. Especially if I can take Calcutta, and because I can start working on the coast over there, the Americans don't come knocking too fast. Because that's my goals, trying to help Italy if possible, because they need it, and I'd also like to beat the Soviets to Maharashtra because they're going to go 1, 2, 3, because they've agreed in the Bratislava Protocols to take Maharashtra before they attack Turkey, and I'm assuming they want to get Turkey out of the way before the German invasion coming at some point, which will probably be later this turn because with protocols, Germany gets some more space here. They get Romania, all of it, which is a big boost for Germany. 5-star made a point of signing the Molotov-Ribbentrop, which unfortunately isn't the best for us. I would have preferred if Molotov-Ribbentrop hadn't been signed. I think it doesn't benefit the Germans as much as it benefits the Soviets because they get to annex all these instead of declare war on them. And so that's a bit of a boost for them in terms of income and spacing, because if they have to declare war, they're way less likely to take things like Lithuania, which put them allow the Allies to declare war on them. So like that's just sort of things that, yeah. I don't think Molotov-Ribbentrop is worth it for Germany, but we could see sea lions happening. I don't think sea lions are worth it for Germany in V4. They're just looking at the victory points. It doesn't really balance out. You can take London, which is a big swing, but your big points are Soviet cities. You need 3 Soviet cities. That's Leningrad, Smolensk, Kiev, and that's 2 points. Otherwise, you're not winning the game. It's really the same for both Germans and Soviets. I think the V4 objectives, I really like the idea of rewarding you for the objectives you completed already to keep you from sniping them late game. But I do think the fact that they reduced the number of objectives from 17 in Alliance to 10 really cut into the flexibility of certain nations and the granularity of scoring. Because, for instance, the Soviets have 2 objectives as a fifth of their total score riding on Central Romania in Warsaw, which is a lot. The Germans have 2 objectives, which is half their total score, riding on these guys. And it made this, for instance, it made Spain way more important for both sides over what I think its importance should be. And now Germany has little incentive to go south of the Balkans because there's no longer a victory objective for that. Same thing with the Nordic areas. Like, its victory objectives are skewed a lot, and especially as Japan. I really like the old Japanese objective for gain resources, which is just having more than 50 IPP. It gave you tons of flexibility in where to go with that. you had some objectives for big resource areas down here, but each one was worth an objective. So it wasn't like it is right now, where you need to hold all Manchuria and these 3 islands to get your point, which makes it much easier for the allies to come and take it from you late game. Same thing with this whole Southeast Asia bit. And the one I really hate is the islands, which I think I've said before. I don't think it's achievable. It's just Midway is so far out there. It's 1 turn away from the U.S. West Coast. It's just not holdable unless you completely erase the U.S. Navy from the sea, which I don't think is possible, and still maintaining these 2 more important objectives. But yeah, I don't like the way the whole objectives reprint, because it really reduced countries' freedoms to act. Like, for instance, Italy. Yes, there was a whole issue with neutral Italy in V3, which I think has gotten reasonably fixed in V4. I haven't played enough games to tell, but I think import mechanics helped a lot with that, because I had a strategy back in V3 where you just park your British fleet off Aden and Gibraltar and murder the Italian fleet the second it goes to war, and then you invade Rome, Italy's out of the game, and you can just take that fleet out to go fight Japan, and because Germany never has a big enough fleet to do anything to you as Britain, if you're smart about defending your home islands. But yeah, that was the but I think that's been solved with import. I think it's much more of a prolonged battle in the Mediterranean now. But the Italians really don't have flexibility, because their 2 victory objectives are East Africa and Greece, and that's it. Like, whereas back in V3, half their objectives were just conquer territory, and it gave them huge amounts of fun to play around. Same with the Soviets. They had 11 objectives they could just get from IPP territory that wasn't scored in a victory condition. It was a little bit funny, because it was actually better back in V3 to take these Molotov-Ribbentrop territories and then skip Estonia or something, because you could get 1 objective for holding all these, but if you didn't score that objective, you got 2 objectives from holding Lithuania and East Poland. So that was a bit of a weird fluke there, where you could actually get more objectives from playing weirdly, but if you didn't have enough to fill out that 11 otherwise. But that meant that the Soviets could do tons of fun stuff in V3 and V2 with going crazy. If you want to see some examples, Rank Carcass really had, I think he's ranked Cat Bombs now. He's an old V2 YouTuber, really great player. I don't think he's posted anything in a long time, but if you go search him up, he's got some really cool strategies for the Soviets back in V2, where you do things like go take out the Duchy cities early, go sit in South America and build up to stop the U.S. Monroe Doctrine point, like just really fun, wacky strategies. And I think with V4, it's really hampered the Soviets' ability to do wacky stuff, because their points are Turkey, Finland, Central Europe, Manchuria. That's really it. Like they just don't have flexibility that they used to. So yeah, that's my rant on V4 objectives. I've got a lot more rants on V4, but there's some things I have really enjoyed about it from some of the changes that I have really enjoyed. Like import was a great one, I think. Battle cruisers are fun. I just wish they'd applied the same battle cruiser logic to every single naval unit, which I think would have been really cool. I've got some naval rules I've been drafting that kind of address that, to try and make the naval game more realistic in that way, a little bit more cat and mouse. But I need to stop my what I would change about V4 rant, because it's probably taken up half the video at this point. But so, Japan, main goals, beat down China, bottle the CCP up in Xinjiang and Tibet. Maybe at some point go knock them out, because I don't intend to keep this peace with the Soviets forever. I really want to take these eastern territories, maybe even get into Novosibirsk, because it pulls a ton of pressure off the Germans if you can force the Soviets to build up here. And a few airborne really can make a difference here, because you just go 1, 2, 3 from Suion, and you can be in Novosibirsk the first turn if you airborne it properly. The main problem the spread cell protocols have, unfortunately, forced me to play nice by giving them a turn before I would do any declarations of war after breaking the protocol. It's non-binding, so I could always just be a bit of a scumbag and break it and declare war on them immediately. But if I'm playing a 5-star again, or Jinx, and late in the tournament, I don't want to have that hanging over my back. So we'll see. Some people might say I've taken the lessons I've learned playing diplomacy a bit too much to heart about the whole power of the stab, but it hurts and it works. So I'll have to weigh that later on, see how much I want to burn my reputation uh, to get into the Soviet Union. So I'd like to hit them at some point. My goal would be China, Calcutta, Soviets, U.S. The Dutch zoners are probably more likely China, Calcutta, Dutch, Soviets. Figure out what the heck to do with the U.S. once they come knocking. Because that's the thing I've got the least strategy about here. I haven't played enough V4 with the new naval rules and the season layouts and stuff to figure out how exactly it works. I'm just going to trust my instincts. They usually work pretty well for this sort of thing. And run lots of simulations turn by turn. So we'll see. I've got some actual Japan turn to make here once I update the board. And thank you all for watching. Let me know any of your thoughts long term, both on Japan, Germany, V4 in general, in the comments below. And see you in, maybe in a few hours.